Some people never seem to break. The crisis hits, the pressure builds, everyone around them is panicking, and they remain still. Not frozen, not numb, just calm. Their voice doesn't shake, their hands don't tremble, their breathing stays steady while the world falls apart around them. To others, this looks like strength, like control, like they have something figured out that the rest of us don't. But what people don't see is what's happening underneath. There is a psychology behind perpetual calmness. Research suggests that people who remain calm under pressure often have one of two things: exceptional emotional regulation skills or deeply ingrained emotional suppression patterns. And the difference between those two is everything. Psychologists distinguish between true emotional regulation and performative calm, between someone who has mastered their nervous system and someone who has simply learned to hide their feelings so well that even they can't find them anymore. For some, calmness is a superpower they've developed through practice, trauma, or natural temperament. For others, it's a survival mechanism that came at a cost. And for many, it's both, a gift and a burden wrapped into one unshakable exterior. But here's the interesting part. Calm people are often misunderstood. They're called cold, unfeeling, emotionless, detached. People assume that because they don't show panic, they don't feel it. That because they don't react, they don't care. But the truth is often the opposite. They feel everything. They just don't let it control them. Or they've learned that showing emotion is dangerous, so they've become experts at concealment. I remember the moment someone told me I was too calm during a crisis. Like my lack of visible panic was evidence I didn't care. But inside, I was processing everything, evaluating options, managing my own anxiety while also managing theirs. I just wasn't performing my stress for their comfort. That's when I understood calmness is often misunderstood as apathy, but they're not the same thing.
Being always calm does not mean feeling nothing. Sometimes it means feeling everything and choosing not to let it show. And that is something people who wear their emotions externally will never fully understand. There is a unique psychology shared by many people who are always calm. They have high distress tolerance, the ability to experience discomfort without immediately reacting to it. When something stressful happens, their nervous system doesn't spike the way others do. Or if it does, they've trained themselves to override the physiological response. Every crisis gets filtered through an internal system before it reaches the surface. Every emotion gets processed privately before, or instead of, being expressed. They don't panic because panic doesn't solve problems. They don't yell because yelling doesn't change outcomes. They don't spiral because spiraling wastes energy. This makes them the person everyone turns to in emergencies, the one who can think clearly when others can't, the anchor in the storm. Scientific studies show that people with exceptional calmness often have lower baseline cortisol levels, higher vagal tone, or well-developed prefrontal cortex activity, all biological markers of emotional regulation. But studies also show that chronic calmness can indicate alexithymia, difficulty identifying and expressing emotions, or a trauma response where showing emotion was once punished. So calmness is not always what it appears to be. Sometimes it's mastery. Sometimes it's survival. Sometimes it's both. But sometimes the world mislabels them. Why aren't you more upset about this? Do you even care? It's like nothing bothers you. These statements carry an accusation that their calm is evidence of emotional deficiency rather than emotional control.
Yet many of the most capable, reliable, emotionally intelligent people are always calm. They're the ones you want in a crisis, the ones who see clearly when everyone else is blinded by panic. Maybe that's the hidden truth. Calmness is not the absence of emotion, it's the management of it. It teaches you to separate feeling from reaction. It teaches you that you don't have to perform distress to prove you care. And it teaches a kind of internal strength that people dependent on external emotional expression never develop. Still, here's a curiosity. If being calm is such a strength, why does it sometimes feel so isolating? Sometimes it's because calm people carry everyone else's anxiety. They're the ones who stay composed so others can fall apart. They hold space for everyone else's emotions while suppressing their own. And that creates an imbalance. They become the emotional anchor for everyone around them, but who anchors them? Sometimes it's because their calm is misread as not caring. When they don't cry at the funeral, people assume they're not grieving. When they don't rage at the injustice, people think they're complicit. But they are grieving. They are angry. They're just processing it internally, in their own time, in their own way. Sometimes it's because they've forgotten how to not be calm. The mask has been on so long, it's fused to their face. They've spent years being the stable one, the reliable one, the one who doesn't break. And now they don't know how to break even when they need to. Sometimes it's because their calmness came from trauma. They learned early that showing emotion was dangerous, that staying calm kept them safe. So they developed a nervous system that defaults to stillness, a brain that shuts down emotion before it can reach the surface, a body that has learned to freeze instead of fight or flight. And now, even when they're safe, they can't access their feelings. They've trained themselves too well. Sometimes it's because they're exhausted. Staying calm takes effort. It's not effortless serenity. It's constant management, constant regulation, constant control. And that control is draining. But they can't stop because everyone needs them to be the calm one. And sometimes it's simply temperament. Some people are just wired with a slower to activate nervous system. They're naturally calm, the way others are naturally excitable. It's not performance, it's not suppression, it's just how their body responds to the world. But here's a secret people who are always calm rarely say out loud. They're not unaffected. They're just good at compartmentalizing. The crisis is happening, and part of their brain is handling it efficiently. But another part is cataloging the fear, the anger, the grief, filing it away to be processed later. Because you can't regulate forever without processing. And calmness without release becomes a pressure cooker. If you are someone who is always calm, you've probably been misunderstood your entire life. You've probably been called cold when you were just controlled, accused of not caring when you cared deeply but quietly. You've probably carried everyone else's emotions while yours went unacknowledged. You've probably been the strong one so many times you forgot you're allowed to be weak. You've probably asked yourself if something is wrong with you, if you're emotionally stunted, if you should be reacting more. But what if nothing is wrong? What if your calm is just a different way of moving through the world? What if you're not emotionless, you're just emotionally self-contained?
Let me shift for a moment from talking about them to talking as one of them. I used to think my calmness meant I was broken. Everyone around me would be devastated, crying, falling apart, and I'd be fine, functional, moving forward. I felt like a robot, like I was missing the part of me that was supposed to feel things the way other people did. But then I started paying attention, and I realized I did feel things, deeply. I just felt them privately. I processed grief in silence. I managed fear through action. I experienced anger as cold clarity instead of hot rage. My calm wasn't absence, it was containment. And slowly I realized there's nothing wrong with processing emotion internally. The problem is when I never process it at all. And now it's time to talk directly to you, because maybe you are one of these people. Maybe you've spent your life being the calm one while wondering if you're capable of feeling at all. Maybe you've been the anchor for everyone else while drowning internally. Maybe your calm is a gift, or maybe it's a cage, or maybe it's both. But you know what? Your calm is not a defect. It's not coldness. It's not emotional inadequacy. Yes, if your calm is suppression, if you've lost access to your feelings, that's worth exploring. But if your calm is regulation, if you feel deeply but express differently, that's valid. Because the truth is, people who are always calm aren't emotionless. They're emotionally self-sufficient. They don't need to externalize every feeling to know it's real. They don't need witnesses to their pain for it to matter. They process differently, not deficiently. Psychologists say that emotional regulation is one of the strongest predictors of mental health, relationship success, and life satisfaction. The ability to feel without being controlled by feeling is a profound strength. Your calm is not a flaw. It's often emotional mastery that others haven't developed. It doesn't mean you never struggle. Being calm and being okay are not the same thing. You can be calm on the outside and falling apart on the inside. And that disconnect between how you appear and how you feel can be its own kind of loneliness. There are moments when being calm feels like a superpower, when you can think clearly in chaos, when you can hold space for others, when you can navigate crisis with clarity. And there are moments when it feels like a prison, when you want to break down but can't, when you want someone to see your struggle but your face won't show it.
Let's go deeper into the psychology behind perpetual calmness. Number 1, emotional regulation mastery. Some people have developed exceptional ability to regulate their nervous system through practice, therapy, meditation, or natural aptitude. They can experience emotion without being hijacked by it. This is healthy calm. This is strength. Number 2 is having a high distress tolerance. They can sit with discomfort without needing to escape it. They've trained their window of tolerance to be wider than most people's. Number 3, they have a stoic philosophy and mindset. They've internalized the idea that they can't control external events, only their response. This creates calm even in chaos. Number 4, trauma-based emotional shutdown. For some, calm is a freeze response. Their nervous system learned that showing emotion was punished, so it shut down emotional expression as protection. This is survival calm. This needs healing. Number 5, alexithymia, or difficulty accessing emotions.
Some genuinely struggle to identify what they're feeling. Their calm isn't choice, it's disconnection from their emotional landscape. Number 6, they have a low emotional reactivity or temperament. Some people are just born with a nervous system that doesn't spike easily. It's not learned, it's biological. Finally, they also have compartmentalization skills. They can separate what I'm feeling from what I'm doing. They feel the fear, but act anyway. They acknowledge the pain, but stay functional. But here lies a paradox. The people who are always calm are often the ones carrying the most. They don't fall apart because they can't afford to. Everyone else is falling apart, and someone needs to hold things together. So they do. They carry their own pain plus everyone else's. And their calm becomes both their strength and their burden. If you've been the calm one in every crisis while silently begging someone to ask if you're okay, you understand this. You're not unbreakable. You're just good at appearing that way. Yet, being always calm doesn't mean you're better than people who express emotion freely. It's not superiority, it's just difference. Some people process externally, others process internally. Neither is more evolved.
Here's something personal, and maybe you'll relate. I spent years being proud of my calm. It made me reliable, trustworthy, the person people counted on. But then I realized I'd lost access to my own emotional depth. I'd regulated so thoroughly, I disconnected. I could handle everyone else's crisis, but couldn't cry at my own losses. I could manage chaos, but couldn't feel joy. My calm had become a wall instead of a tool. That's when I learned the difference between regulation and suppression. One is healthy. The other is survival that's outlived its purpose. Now I practice calm when it serves me, but I also practice feeling when I need to. Still, the world will always try to convince you otherwise. Society says emotional expression is health, that if you're not showing distress, you're not processing it. But the truth is, there are many ways to process emotion. External expression is one, internal reflection is another. You may not cry in front of people, but that doesn't mean you don't grieve. You may not yell, but that doesn't mean you're not angry. You may stay composed, but that doesn't mean you're unaffected. And because you're calm, you've developed capacities others haven't. You can hold space. You can think in crisis. You can be the steady presence others desperately need. You're the person who doesn't add to the chaos, who doesn't amplify the panic, who offers clarity when everyone else offers noise. And maybe that makes you rare. There is a beautiful quality people overlook. Those who are always calm often become the safest people to be around. They don't react. They don't judge. They don't escalate. They create a sense of safety just by being steady. And in a world that feels increasingly chaotic, that steadiness is a gift. So let me talk to you directly now. Clearly, honestly, you are not cold for being calm. You are not emotionless. You are not broken. You are someone who has mastered something most people struggle with their entire lives: the ability to feel without being consumed. If your calm is suppression, if you've lost access to your feelings, please explore that. You deserve to feel the full range of human emotion. But if your calm is regulation, if you simply process differently than others, stop apologizing for it. You don't owe people a performance of distress. You don't have to prove you care by falling apart. One day,
Someone will recognize the strength it takes to stay calm. Someone will see the effort beneath the ease. Someone will value your steadiness instead of mistaking it for apathy. And that person will be worth all the ones who called you cold. Until then, stay steady, but also give yourself permission to not be calm sometimes. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to need support. You're allowed to be the one who's held instead of the one who holds. Because people who are always calm aren't superhuman. They're just human in a quieter way. Keep your calm when it serves you, but don't let it become a cage. Because people who are always calm aren't unfeeling, they're feeling deeply while appearing still. And that's not weakness. That's one of the most profound forms of strength.